The story begins with a guy named Haruka fantasizing about his longtime crush, Akiho. Later, Haruka works up the courage to set an appointment with Akiho. When Akiho shows up, he blurts out that he likes her and asks her to go out with him. Akiho simply replies that he'd have to accept her as she is since it's her first relationship. She then tells him she's going to go ahead and learn all the 47 culture positions it takes to satisfy a boyfriend. This girl is not right in the head. Later, while Haruka is still thinking about how he's in a relationship with his girlfriend, Akiho approaches him in front of other students with a note to ask if he has any cultural preferences because she read online that getting those out of the way can reduce frustration in a relationship. He becomes tense and tells her they don't need to move straight to such topics, but she insists. Later that day, Haruka's childhood friend, Ariyama, ambushes him in the locker room. Not long after that, Haruka's sister, Kanata, joins them, and they both decide to walk him home because he doesn't have a girlfriend. Well, isn't that nice? I wish someone walked me home too. Oh wait, never mind, I forgot I'm stuck in a basement and writing these recaps. The next day, Akiho goes to drop off some books in the library, and Haruka offers to help her. She decides to address him with a less formal name that she believes will make his spider senses tingle. So, she calls him a dirty name, which just freaks him out rather than arouse him. During the lunch break, Haruka asks Akiho for some pictures of her, and she informs him she has taken sensual pictures of herself for his use, but he tells her a picture of her face is enough. So she sends him a picture of her face after brushing her teeth. The next day, Akiho overhears some girls trying to hatch out a plan to impress their crushes, so she brings up a ridiculously idea that she read somewhere, which scares them off. Later, the girls gossip about how weird she is. Akiho overhears it and believes Haruka must think the same thing about her. When he approaches her, he smiles and asks to walk her home, which makes her melt inside. The next morning, while Akiho and Haruka are walking to class, Haruka picks something from her hair, which makes her stagger because her ears are quite sensitive. When Haruka reveals that it's a plus for him to know that about her, she decides to reveal her biggest weakness to him, but he tells her she doesn't have to. During class, Ariyama comes to disturb Haruka, and she learns that Haruka has a girlfriend. As usual, Ariyama starts to jump on Haruka, and she interprets every expression of his as an infatuation that he has for her, which just makes Akiho boil within. Ariyama even references when she and Haruka used to rub bodies, but Haruka clarifies to Akiho that she is referring to when they used to play as kids. Over the next couple of days, Ariyama continues to intervene into their relationship, which just makes Akiho more jealous. Later, Ariyama tells Haruka that he notices her so much because the relationship between him and Akiho isn't intense enough. Akiho overhears it and thinks of a way to make their relationship more intense. Later, Akiho invites Haruka to come see her in the gym locker room after school. When he gets there, he half expects to find her with a whip and a little sister role-playing custom. He indeed finds her with several pieces of electric equipment used during sensual activities, but he tells her he's too vanilla for this stuff. Still looking for a way to make their relationship more intense, Akiho tells Haruka it's better to have fun with her than focus on dirty magazines. She soon opens one of those magazines and finds out that she can't compete with the stunts the models are pulling, so she decides to go receive more training. On their way home, Akiho plans to romantically jump on Haruka's back. It goes fine in her mind, but in real life, she just knocks him to the ground. She starts to sob about how she has failed him as a girlfriend by not figuring out what turns him on. He tells her she's the best thing he could have wished for, and he's glad that she always tries to make their relationship better. Akiho agrees by saying these minor things will clear out once they become more intimate. She tells him that she wants them to become more intimate, which makes him blush. On a rainy day, Akiho suggests that she and Haruka run home in the rain because she read that boyfriends like wet clothes. Haruka suggests a good umbrella, but she doesn't agree since she's not so comfortable with physical closeness. When Haruka gets home, his little sister, Kanata, approaches him and accuses him of being in love with her. She tells him she'll keep him company, but she freaks out when she finds out he has a girlfriend. She tries to act cool but ends up eavesdropping on Haruka's phone conversation with Akiho. The next day, Kanata comes to Akiho's class to snoop around, and she runs into Akiho. Kanata blurts out that Haruka likes her more than any other person, and he likes to caress her, inferring something more sinister than the real thing. Later, Haruka privately clarifies the misunderstanding to calm Akiho. While they talk, Kanata mistakenly trips Akiho. Akiho apologizes to Haruka because she covered her skirt when she fell and didn't give him a chance to sneak a peek, which makes no sense to him. Haruka decides to hand it to Kanata, who later apologizes for her bad behavior. Kanata and Akiho become friends. During school cleanup week, Akiho motivates the boys by reminding them how their moms found their dirty magazines when they failed to clean their rooms. The boys are roused up, and a few people even shed some tears here and there. During cleanup, Akiho teaches Haruka how to empty spray cans before disposing of them. Haruka tries to teach Ariyama, who immediately starts to massage the can until white substances gush out, then sticks out her tongue. To make matters worse, Ariyama and Kanata start do something strange to the broomsticks. After they're done, Akiho overhears a boy telling his friend he changes girlfriends easily, just like he easily dumps personal belongings. Akiho starts to wonder if Akiho is the same kind of person, so she asks him if he plans to dump his personal belongings. He tells her he's considering it, but he believes he'd like to really hold on to the things he likes. She starts to tear up, so he thinks she has some personal attachments to his belongings. Sometime later, Akiho watches a show about how cooking food for one's boyfriend makes him happy. The next day, she cooks Haruka something in her lunchbox, but the food is so lethal that it begins to speak in a hoarse monster voice. Soon, Ariyama brings the food she cooked to school, so Akiho begs Ariyama to become her cooking master. The next day, Ariyama shows Akiho the ropes. It's hard to know if she's talking about cooking or making love, but Haruka interjects when it becomes too sensual. He soon goes into the restroom and overhears the two ladies talking dirty about how they want to touch and put things into other things. He freaks out and rushes outside to find them cooking. When the food is ready, Haruka compliments Akiho. When it's time for dessert, Ariyama tells Haruka she wants to eat his banana. He goes ahead to bring out his banana, and she falls down blushing before he hands her the banana he took out of his bag. Akiho tells her dad, Mr. Kasaka, that her boyfriend is going to be coming around. He's shocked and tells her how his heart aches since it's her first time. As she always does, Akiho frankly tells him that the place that hurts during one's first time is beneath, as she points to her skirt. When Akiho's mother, Mrs. Kasaka, notices Mr. Kasaka's agitation, she tells him to go for a walk to clear his head while she prepares for Haruka's arrival. Mrs. Kasaka also sends Akiho out to purchase some food for their lunch. Not long after, Haruka gets to the door. Mrs. Kasaka talks just as awkwardly as Akiho and tries to have some small talk with him. She starts by asking him how many rubbers he has on him since family planning is important since he'll be dating Akiho. Haruka tries to change the conversation and picks up Akiho's photo album. He adores the cute pictures until he finds Akiho reading adult-rated books when she was 3. Meanwhile, Mr. Kasaka approaches the door but hesitates before he enters. He starts to reminisce over Akiho's childhood when he sees the photo album. He remembers when Akiho started to cry when she tore a piece of paper. His wife tried to comfort her by telling her she'll feel much more pain when she tears her lower hole entrance, which freaked him out. He also remembers when Akiho fell over while playing with her doll, and Mrs. Kasaka was convinced that Akiho was a natural-born sensual educator. Akiho catches her father outside, and they both enter the house. Akiho has brought food, and Haruka invites Mrs. Kasaka to eat with him and Akiho. Mrs. Kasaka misunderstands his statement and thinks he wants to have a three-way with both of them. Haruka immediately goes to speak with Mr. Kasaka, who seems like a normal member of the family. He is immediately accused of considering lovemaking with Mr. Kasaka, who tells them to stop their nonsense. After lunch, Mr. Kasaka gets to know Haruka more and likes him. When Akiho sees Haruka off, Mrs. Kasaka apologizes to Mr. Kasaka for not being able to entertain Haruka well. He tells her she has always been a perfect wife and mother, which makes her happy. Mrs. Kasaka recalls how her life's goal has been to teach Akiho all she knows so she can find her own special someone. Sometime later, Mrs. Kasaka and Akiho speak about Akiho's first date at the movies with Haruka. Mr. Kasaka soon hears about the date and chokes on his drink. He recalls his first date with his wife. Mrs. Kasaka starts to give Akiho some tips on orally pleasuring Haruka's banana, even if it's bitter, but Mr. Kasaka tells her it's way too early for that. Mrs. Kasaka advises Akiho to do some research. Akiho watches a show and sees a cute girl who always bends her head 30 degrees. When Haruka arrives, Akiho bends her head, and Haruka thinks she looks super cute for some reason. During their bus ride, Akiho notices a weird couple talking dirty to themselves. She takes notes and freaks Haruka out by trying it out on him. After their movie, Akiho mentions that she learned a lot of methods from the adult-rated scenes in the movie and is hopeful to try them out. Haruka tells her they don't need to do this soon, so she asks him if he's saying he doesn't want to try it out. This time, he doesn't reply since he's between the devil and the deep blue sea. At the end of the day, Haruka tells her he likes how he got to spend time with her. Akiho immediately becomes devastated since she realizes she spent most of the time trying to do research instead of paying attention to Haruka. Haruka notices her shock and proposes another date where they watch some blossoming leaves fall to cheer her up. On the day of their date, they find out the blossoms have fallen due to the rain, and Akiho is devastated again but tries to keep her cool. Haruka tries to cheer her up by saying they can always come next year. Akiho immediately becomes happy because he says they will still be together by next year. Days later, a new transfer student named Rina arrives at the school. She tells the entire class she likes frolicking with hairy males, so they all avoid her. Akiho and Haruka approach her and learn that she was referring to her dogs, so Akiho tells her an appropriate statement would have been to say she likes being licked all over her body. Later, Rina sadly confesses to Haruka and Akiho that she went to an all-girls school, so she doesn't know how to deepen friendships, especially with males. Haruka and Akiho decide to keep her company. At the cafeteria, Rina asks Akiho if she's an A, B, or C, and Akiho confesses that she's a little bigger than a C because they have gotten bigger recently. The entire school hears her, and Haruka shouts out that Rina was asking for the lunch menu she is on. Ariyama soon ambushes Haruka and introduces herself to Rina as Haruka's mistress. Rina likes her and expresses her wish to be close to men and become a mistress too. Ariyama offers to show how to impress men using not-so-proper methods. Ariyama soon starts to cry when Rina asks for a demonstration because she doesn't have what's needed for the method to work. After school, Rina is excited when Akiho and Haruka agree to be her friends. Akiho is also glad she has made a new friend, and Haruka is just glad he made it through the day. Rina kisses them on the cheek, and Akiho is shocked to learn friends do that. Haruka informs her that friends don't actually kiss each other's cheeks, so she believes they do it mouth-to-mouth instead. The next day, Rina suggests they all go on a dog walk with her, but Akiho asks for some time to prepare by measuring her neck for a leash. Haruka has no idea what she's talking about. They later decide to go to the zoo and invite Ariyama. At the zoo, the girls approach a large dog that stands upright to expose its equipment. The girls instantly start to stare at the dog's equipment and compare it to Haruka's. Haruka decides to take them to see a turtle, but the girls start to talk about how he's going for a smaller animal to reduce the competition. Meanwhile, Mrs. Kusaka and Mr. Kusaka decide to come to the zoo to go on a date after a long time. When they get there, Mr. Kusaka asks his wife why she likes elephants so much, and she says it's because they're big, powerful, and shoot out liquid with such vigor and precision. While going through the zoo, they run into a crying little girl. Mrs. Kusaka starts to comfort her, but Mr. Kusaka immediately starts looking for the girl's mother when Mrs. Kusaka tells the girl there are some exciting monkeys getting down and dirty nearby. Sometime later, Rina tells the gang that her mom finally allowed her to purchase a phone. She believes she's nailed down all the etiquette of phone communication, so Akiho eagerly asks Rina to teach her. Rina calls Akiho right there, and they both have a conversation about the type of underwear they're both wearing. Later, Rina asks Haruka to take a selfie with her so she can learn how to take one. After they take the picture, she adds some filters to it. She starts to run around the school and tells everyone she got a facial pic from Haruka instead of a face filter picture. Akiho tells Haruka she learned that a good girlfriend should be able to sense her boyfriend's desires without talking, so she asks him not to speak to her till the end of the day. Throughout the day, she keeps trying to read his expression to supply his every need. She gets him his lunch, picks up his fallen erasers, and does basically everything until the entire school starts to gossip about how Haruka mistreats his girlfriend. When school ends, Akiho decides to stay behind for class rep meetings. The leader, Saori, asks for some suggestions to make the school better. Akiho suggests they take training on how to use rubbers so people don't wear them inside out when the time comes, which Saori refuses. The next day, Akiho develops a hiccup that doesn't end. While Haruka and Akiho are in the lab, Ariyama hides in a nearby locker to scare them. She soon hears them talking about sticking something in so it doesn't hurt Akiho, so she jumps out. She eventually finds out that Haruka was trying to stick some paper into Akiho's nose to make her sneeze. Meanwhile, Kanata and her friend, Misaki, go to the supermarket. Kanata accidentally picks up a box of rubbers with her cereal, but she doesn't know what it is since she is very young. When Kanata's cart fills up, she decides to drop the box of rubbers in the cereal section. Misaki finds it and thinks her eyes are failing her, but she decides it must be a new brand of cereal. She happily takes it to the cashier, who starts to bleed in the nose when Misaki says she's taking it to school to share with everyone.